on the stage. So if anybody would like to come up and get comfortable on a cushion, we welcome you to do so. Be brave. It's okay.
See, I only feel very young. We won't be getting up when we sit on those cushions. You have to spend the night here.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. I hope you just had a wonderful and beautiful time at this incredible performance. My name is Owoye Timpo, and I'm a director here in New York City. And it's my great pleasure to introduce you to these wonderful and amazing women who are sitting to my left. So let me I know you have their information in your bio, in your programs, but I'll just give them each a very brief introduction. To the farthest left from me is Letty Cottin Pogrebin, who is just an incredible woman. She's the founding editor and writer for Miss Magazine. And she has written a phenomenal 11 books. The most recent is entitled Single Jewish Male Seeking Soulmate. Her titles are amazing. And one of the other recent ones that I think we can talk more about tonight is called How to Be a Friend to a Friend Who's Sick. And she also does a lot of work with intergroup harmony, just thinking about how to bridge the conversation between a variety of different groups. So thank you very much for being here tonight. And then our second wonderful guest is Carol Jenkins, who is a former television journalist. She is she's a founding president and board member of the Women's Media Center. She's a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. She's a chair of AMRAF, which is the African Medical and Research Foundation, which is based in Nairobi and does work in over 30 countries around the world. And she was also one of the executive producers of Eve's Sundance Award-winning documentary, What I Want My Words to Do to You. So please join me in welcoming So I actually just wanted to start off. Is this the first time you have seen this play?
Oh, well, I know the book.
Okay.
And I know Eve. I've known her since she was a kid. For me, it's just a visceral heart journey to see her go through this.
Yeah.
But it's the first time I've actually seen her perform it.
Oh, that's
And it was wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
I was here, lucky to be here on opening night. I'm glad I saw it before we came together to sit here and actually speak, because I was without words at the end of it. And this sort of prepared me for this. I also have known Eve since she was very young. She was 19 years old, and I have twin daughters, and they were 15. And to show you how Eve thinks big, at 19 years old, she organized something called Future Generations for Nuclear Disarmament.
Well, sounds very much
And
like
she got
Eve,
the
right?
kids in New York City to come out to Central Park, and it was like a be-in, to get rid of nuclear war.
That's beautiful. Well, it just goes to show you that sometimes the person that you are when you're young is the person that you grow up to be. So that's amazing.
And I met her when she was working for the city of New York, and she invited me to speak. I was then doing the news, and she invited me to speak at some event of hers. And then several years later, I was invited to an event where the Eve Ensler would be in attendance. And I got there and I said, "You're the Eve Ensler?" That kid, And indeed she was and is.
And so seeing this play for the second time for you, having read the book and then seeing it live in front of you, what are some of the things that resonated with you, either on Tuesday when you saw it, today, and just seeing it for the first time?
Well, for me, it's and you must get the book because it is a powerful experience. For me, it's that concept of the space for the baby, a child, because we don't really give enough respect to that beginning in life. you need that comfort and that security, and as Eve talks about in her book and in this performance, that if you don't have that, you have a hole, you have a gap, and it's the kind of thing that can send you down many a bad road. As Eve says, what did she say? She said, it was sex, performance art, all the bad habits, if you will. But I think, to me, that's that, and of course her family history, which was it's a miracle. I think it's a miracle that she's here still with us. So.
I actually reacted first very selfishly because I am a cancer survivor. And first of all, I have to put in a good word for Sloan Kettering. I think it depends on your doctor, it depends on your nurses and your technicians, and I had a wonderful tribe of supportive, smart people who sort of became my backup squad getting through that. So I reacted that way. I empathized. I mean, she went through way more than I did, and I already was traumatized in my mind. And then I reacted to the metaphor of the body and the earth. That spoke to me very deeply, and the ravaging and rape of the earth and the ravaging and rape of women. And I saw her feminism writ large. She's a movement person, but people sort of think of her more as an artist and a writer and a playwright. But here she's really, I see the organizing in her, the fact that she takes pain and she refashions it and transmogrifies it into something useful for the world. How many playwrights have done what she did, which is to start a city of joy and to make women think twice about down there, which she did with Vagina Monologues, which has now been seen all over the world. So I was yet again sort of blown away by the enormity of her impact.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And you should definitely see the documentary. There's a wonderful documentary about the City of Joy that Eve participated in. So I would say seeing the change in those women's lives is extraordinary. I do some work in Africa for AMREF Health Africa, and went on a medical mission and saw some of what Eve talks about. The women lined up to have their bodies repaired after this, ravaging, just extraordinary. From a 9-year-old girl to a 90-year-old woman, all there. And one of the things that I remark about the hospitals in Africa, first of all, families come and they bring, it's not what we envision, all of the things that we have. Women giving babies don't even get having babies don't even get an aspirin, and they're expected to pick their baby up and their mats up and move along so that the next woman can come and deliver her baby. But we arrived at a hospital with a group of doctors, and I've never heard such silence. Now you know that people were suffering, but in our hospitals you would hear people screaming, and it was just absolute silence, waiting for relief, and so grateful that the doctors were there to perform surgeries. And I think we did, like 100, 200 fistula repairs, in the space of a day or two, just round the clock.
It's so interesting. I mean, I feel like a lot of the work that both of you are involved in is thinking about how to tell stories and how to kind of reframe the stories that we tell. In your book that I mentioned, it sounds like you talk a lot about how do we kind of reframe our conversation around how do we talk to each other, how do we heal each other, how do we take care of each other. And a lot of your work, of course, has also been in how to use the media, whether it's in written journalism or whether it's through broadcast, to reframe the conversation about the place of gender, about the place of encouraging people of color to rise in different kind of platforms. I'm curious to know, what are the things that you are interested in kind of rewriting? How do we tell the story about X, Y, or Z?
Well, I tried very hard to rewrite the etiquette of illness, because when I was diagnosed, I suddenly realized that people didn't know how to talk to me, and there's some reference to that in Eve's presentation. But friends surprised me. The ones I would have thought were kind of would push me away and be awkward were very comforting, and the ones I would have thought were comforting said, "Oh, how awful," and never called again. I try to create a kind of expectation of honesty that we think is impolite, and that is, for example, to be able to say, please do not send me a Zabar's fruit basket. Send me a massage. I mean, the ability to say to your friends what you really need and get it, rather than have them, bring a bottle of wine to a recovering alcoholic, or non-kosher food to, beautiful non-kosher food to someone that you are friends enough with, you should know keeps the dietary laws. Things that require a complete recalibration of the relationship between friends and their sick friends.
And what do you think is the challenge to that honesty, to being able to move forward in a different way?
That we are so scared. I think that we immediately imagine, oh, this could be me, and in some very deep psychological place we feel it's catching, even if we know it's not literally catching. You don't want to be, I had people say to me, is it fatal? Is it fatal? Somebody else said, well, if you need a mastectomy, at least you're married. The most incredible, thoughtless things, and you feel for people because they have been schooled on Emily Post, and you're supposed to say things like, God only gives you as much as you can handle, or it could be worse, or maybe you should have, and then they start telling you what you should have done, and did you smoke, and things that are totally unhelpful. So what stands between us and honesty is a lot of kind of false training exercises as we were growing up, to be polite and to, like, if you're visiting someone who's lost a child, you don't mention the child when what the person really wants to hear is your memory of their child. So we need to sort of flip the whole thing around.
And I just recently lost a friend. I've lost several friends to cancer, and my friend asked me at a certain point, because people had been visiting, she said, is it okay if I cry? She was asking for permission to face up to her reality, which was that she was not going to make it out of this, and we were all there with her, but there was the expectation that we were going to be cheering, and she was going to be cheery, and when all she needed was to cry. And so and that's a hard thing to do, because just our instincts, we were raised, don't cry.
Don't make the person even sadder.
Right.
And then they bring somebody who's just, waiting to die, a get well balloon. It's so beyond the.
But the one thing that my friend did get, what turned out to be the best gift, was a pair of Wonder Woman pajamas.
Well, which kind of reminds me of, because I interviewed about 80 people, mostly in the waiting room when I was waiting for my treatments at Sloan Kettering. I suddenly said, I need a book to read about how to help my friends be better friends, and I went online and there was no such book, so I decided to write one.
She is so good at it. She is brilliant at that.
So I interviewed people who were, sitting beside me, and, what have your friends done that works, and what have your friends done that is just unbelievably awful. And I remember one woman said, I do not want to be visited when I'm hooked up to all these, feeders and tubes. I don't want to be visited by somebody who's on her way to yoga. With her yoga clothes on.
Stopping by.
You don't realize, the effect of a supremely vibrant, healthy person on you when you're lying there.
And you have to see this woman. We belong to a potluck dinner group.
Women's group.
That sounds amazing.
Gloria Steinem, Marlo Thomas,
Elaine Grossman, Elaine
May. If conversation, you know.
You need to Skype into this
You
lunch.
really do. You really wouldn't want to hear it. I must say that even having raised children and grandchildren, I've never heard so many shut-ups as there are among those fast friends.
We're very honest with each other.
You need that. And for Carol, in the kind of work that you're doing, what are some of the things that you feel like would help if we could rewrite the narrative, as it were?
Yes, I want to rewrite the narrative about the ERA, you know. So I'm working on with the ERA Coalition. I'm on the board, and you know there are actually 3 ERAs. One, people would like to. There were only 2 states needed for the original one. That was so devastating. We got so close, 3 states, and now it's 2 states because a black woman named Pat Spearman in Nevada turned that state. And then Carolyn Maloney has introduced a bill that actually has the word woman in it. And the coalition has written a 3rd so-called ERA because it's more than women. It's people of color and differently gendered and faith and disabled. Because as we all know, when the Constitution was written, none of those people or us people were considered. And I think that it's at the root of the disaffection and discrimination that we experience in this country with Me Too and Time's Up, the women, you know, anything that, you know, pay inequity, reproductive justice, all of that is an issue because the rules that we play by are faulty. And so we need to go back and change those rules, and that's what I'm working on, to make one of those 3, or all of those 3.
Speaking of Me Too, and I just heard Ruth Bader Ginsburg speak at NYU, and she's really pushing the ERA, which is such a powerful, authoritative voice. I feel as if it's making an impact because she's been saying it all over the place lately. But the Me Too moment, even, we were just talking to Eve about this, why so many men seem to be coming to this play, and moved by it, and stunned by it, and engaged and caring. I mean, you can feel it, and you can feel it in the silence. Is because they know that this is just an extension of the Me Too stories that we're hearing. The gradation, you know, begins with a pat on the fanny, or, you know, a hand on your breast, and the assumption of entitlement goes all the way into the rape as a tool of war. Rape as a tool of war.
Yeah, and the great legal scholar Catherine McKinnon just wrote an editorial in the New York Times, and what she says is that the Me Too movement did what all of the laws could not do, because even when you have money to pay for a lawyer, and even if you should win your case, we're hearing about more and more women who then are unemployable because nobody will touch them. I mean, it's so that whole, you know, system is a bit faulty, you know, in itself. So I mean, they're raising $40 million, you know, a 1-by-1 legal case is not going to change things. So Letty's next book is going to be about the ERA. Ruth Bader Ginsburg supporting our cause. That's the next book we need. Yes, Jessica
Newworth's book is a great book on the Equal Rights Amendment.
And it's such an interesting point that you bring up too about levels of gradation, because, you know, it feels like in so much of our kind of American political or cultural discourse, you know, we have such a challenge with talking about the levels of things and all the shades of gray in between different topics.
As it were.
Yeah. I just wonder if you could talk about, in the work that you've been doing too, how do you kind of communicate the complexity of the things that you're talking about, and what are the tools that you're using?
I've been arguing with people ever since the Harvey Weinstein thing that I believe all this discussion about gradations and the kind of obsession with you know, saying this isn't as bad as that, and we can put up with this, and we can joke about this, but we then at a certain point have to get serious. All of that is a distraction for me from the fact that all of it is wrong. All of it is wrong. There should not be a requirement to calibrate your safety when you go to work.
Yeah.
Am I going to be able to sit in a conference room without somebody, grabbing me under the table? Can I go to a convention of my trade association without having somebody ram their way into my room?
Yeah.
Why should women have to go through their professional or work life or waitressing, worrying first about their own, safety, and are they going to get fired, and then, will they be able to support their family?
Yeah.
And yet, what I think about are the children of those men and the wives to a lesser degree, but I think of the children of the men who've been caught up in all of this. That is, the schoolyard, as we all know, is already a very mean place. And for them to have to still engage in life when they're caught up in some, mostly the very public instances of it, it's heartbreaking.
It's
So
heartbreaking, but they brought this upon themselves. They should have thought of it. They should have thought of it. That sense of entitlement, and that you can compartmentalize your life, and I can have everything I want over here and then go home to the nice home cooked meal and adorable children. No, you can't really do that anymore.
And to keep in mind the racial part of that too, Scott, because some of it is pure racism that's driven, so many women out of media, for instance. So I think that the two work together, and sometimes it's hard to separate whether you're being persecuted because you're black or because you're a woman or because you're both. So I think that we need to keep that in mind, that component.
And it's really extraordinary hearing all of the individual stories and hearing people say where the lines are, and where maybe there's only one single line and not many lines to cross is an interesting moment that we're in right now. I could just keep asking you guys questions, but I want to open up to you all in the house to see if you have any more questions for these ladies.
Hi.
And I'll repeat the question just so everybody can hear.
I have a teacher voice, you can hear me. I'm an English teacher at the Young Women's Leadership School of Queens. And I am teaching a course on feminism. It wasn't my choice, it was a weird scheduling thing, and so I embraced it. And I find that the young ladies there in 11th grade and 12th grade, they don't want to identify as feminists. They don't think there's a need for feminism. Even when I show them that there is, how do I change their minds, I guess? How do I make them see the light?
The media has already done such a good job of making
Stigmatizing the word.
strong, making it stronger.
Just for everybody didn't hear it. She just has a question about how do you reframe feminism for the younger generations?
But very young, the 10, 11, 12-year-olds.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. I think it has to be done in the home. There has to be, and my daughter and I go through she has 3 small children, and I'm a television person, and I say, turn on the TV, and they're saying, no, we're not turning on the TV. And certainly it's a dangerous thing to do now because of all of the vocabulary that we have to teach our small children, not only about feminism, but about race. I have 4 and 5-year-olds that, I have to define slavery for them, and they say, what do you mean? And now deportation is the new word in the household. What does that mean? Sending those children away. Yeah. So I think that a lot of it has to happen, with teachers like you, and in the home, so that this idea of a woman or a girl who asserts herself is not a man-hater or a boy-hater, and somehow needs to be distanced from.
Yeah. As Carol says, the media really has done a job on feminists, feminazis, all of that. And there is a little bit of a problem when you're 10 years old and you've never been turned away from a job because you're black or you're Hispanic or you're a woman. You haven't felt that part of it. But I think that, it's better to talk back to the TV because you're going to see so much sexism on it. And it's good to create a grid that starts with, it's not fair. If you've got stories, anecdotes, ask them for their moms and grandmothers' experiences with it's not fair. Because we all have that. And kids have this absolutely raw, visceral sense of what it's not fair is all about. I often find when I'm talking to younger groups, and I don't love doing that for just the reason you say, because they can't imagine, the stuff that happens to us. And you really can't do it with the grabber-in-chief sitting in the Oval Office. You don't have a paradigm of like what the Obamas were, which, this is behavior you want to accept, you want to emulate, thank you so much. I'm supposed to be the wordsmith here. But the fairness thing they get.
I think we might have time for another question. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
What would the scenario have been like had the patient been a male instead of a female?
What would
What the circumstance would be if it was a male instead of a female patient?
Interviewing men for my book, How to Be a Friend to a Friend Who's Sick, was actually grueling because they were so hobbled by being weak. Men are not supposed to be weak. It's really, in a way, harder for a man to be sick. He doesn't know, this is a generalization, but it's certainly panned out in my interviews. Men are not used to kind of trading vulnerabilities with their friends. We do. We sit across the table and they say, this horrible thing happened to me and I didn't know what to do. And we kind of share weakness and try to grow stronger through each other's support. So we have the habit of turning to other people for the hugs. And men get emasculated by weakness. So men I interviewed, I would say 4 out of 10 had never told anybody but their spouses that they were sick. They hid it from their work colleagues, superiors for fear of losing their jobs, but also from their friends, for fear of losing the kind of masculine status. Again, the calibration of, how manly am I? And certainly once your illness shows on your body, you have to deal with it, and very often they lie as long as they can possibly lie. But the inability to allow people to help you because you've been trained to kind of go it alone and solve your own problems and be tough, and then suddenly you can't be. I felt a lot of compassion for what men went through. I don't know whether doctors treat them differently. I've been told they do treat them with a little more respect. They don't imagine that a man is making this up, these symptoms and so on. They don't ascribe it to, you had a bad mood day or you're menstruating or, your boyfriend left you. They actually look for a cause for the symptoms. I don't know, that wasn't my inquiry, so I can't attest to that.
Thank you. Well, before we head out for the evening, I just want to encourage everybody, if you get a chance, to go to the City of Joy website. It has information about the documentary that Carol mentioned, and also if you get the chance to visit these ladies' websites, they all both have newsletters and just really amazing information about the work that they're doing. And also, as you might know, there's going to be talkbacks almost every week after the performances. So even if you don't attend that performance, but you see a speaker that you want to come back and listen to, you can just let the usher outside know that you came to see a performance, and they'll let you back in for the talkback. Yeah, if you go to the MTC website, it has a schedule of everybody who's going to be speaking, so you can find the information there. And I just want to say thank you so much to Carol and to Letty for being here with us tonight. Thank you. Have a great night.